Oh boy, I'm sitting here grooving. Y'all know I love that song. My own theme song. I really do love it. But anyway, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk on Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper. I am so excited to be with you all today because, May is one of the most active months we can really on the calendar. It's full of national celebrations and observances like Small Business Month, Military Appreciation Month, Memorial Day, National Foster Care Awareness, Mental Health Awareness, Older Americans, you name it. We are in the midst of acknowledging all of those events during the month of May. And I'm sure I've forgotten a few that you all may be commemorating yourselves, including your very own birthday. And I want to send a shout out to our producer, Chevy Lassiter, who is celebrating already. She's gone on a little vacation, even though she's still with us in the back producing this show, but her birthday is on Monday. And so hopefully you will join me in wishing her a very, very happy birthday. So while we're covering most of these events in our print and digital editions, we're focusing a segment of this edition of Let's Talk on our seniors. And before we get into the show, I just wanted to share with you what our reporter, DeMarco Rush, did as he had the opportunity to spend time with Mr. Emory Givens, a 90-year-old seasoned DC resident. He spent some time with him to discover his secret to a long life. Let's check out this video.
I'm Emory Givens, and I was born in Washington, D.C. I'll be 91 in July, and I've been out here about 10 years now, living in Cameron Grove.
This is the place.
I got a knee replacement, and I needed therapy, and they were sending me to a pool up in Bowie for therapy. And I found out that the therapy, even though I went for 2 or 3 years, all I needed to do was to swim. So I kept thinking, well, I paid them $18,000 for 6 months, and I can go here for about $250 a year. I've been swimming all of my life. When I went to Banneker Pool when I was a kid, that was the first black pool. I try 4 days a week, I try to come up here. And my doctor has given me a slip that says I need at least 35 to 40 minutes, 4 days a week swimming. I do the frog kick because of my knee. So I have to use the frog kick. I can't bend my knee to go up and down like you do when you do the crawl. It helps my weight, keep my weight down, because I used to weigh 250 and I got down to 185. I think swimming is a great exercise regardless of your age, because if nothing else, it keeps the muscles and the blood circulating, and it's easier on the bones.
Thank you so much, Mr. Givens, for sharing your story with us, and to DeMarco Rush for going out and having that opportunity to follow Mr. Givens. And I said he's a DC resident, but actually, as you know, he's a resident of Prince George's County. But I don't know about y'all. I grew up in DC. I used to spend time at Banneker Pool myself. I can't swim though. Got to work on that. But, as I get older, I may follow Mr. Givens' prescription for a healthy, longer life. And this is Older Americans Month. Our seniors throughout the DMV are doing some amazing things and doing things to kind of keep the body moving. So I want to thank both of them for bringing us that story. And if you happen to have a story about especially a senior in your community. I mean, Older Americans Month is going to be over the end of this month, the end of May, but the stories of our older Americans, it never ends. So we want to learn more about the folks that you think might be a great feature for us. And if you have someone, send us an email at news, N-E-W-S, at WashingtonInformer.com. Again, that's news at WashingtonInformer.com. We want to congratulate again, Mr. Givens, and we wish you an early happy birthday. Keep on doing what you do. So another observance this month is the 100th birthday of Malcolm X, would be, as I said, 100 years old on Monday, May 19th. Every May from 1972 to 1995, we celebrated Malcolm X Day with rallies throughout the city with the intention of bringing awareness to the issues in our community, in the Black community. So today we acknowledge the contributions of Malcolm X, a civil rights icon whose powerful words continue to inspire generations. And so there will be several Malcolm X events throughout the city. If you are interested in knowing where they are, we invite you to go to WashingtonInformer.com, to our events calendar, and there are listings of events that you can find there, and spend some time honoring the life and legacy of Malcolm X. And this Monday, May 19, Humanities DC is hosting a panel on the state of journalism in DC. I'll be on that panel with a few other esteemed colleagues, and the event will take place at the True Reformer Building located at 1200 U Street Northwest from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. So registration's on Eventbrite at the State of Journalism, and you can go to the website there or either at humanitiesdc.org, community journalism, to find out more about this program. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot to say about the state of journalism, particularly here in our nation's capital. But we know the insights from those of you who are consumers of the media, who actually follow. So many people have cut off television, stopped reading newspapers, maybe even stopped doing social media, only because you don't like what you're reading or hearing or seeing in the news. But those of us who continue to work on your behalf are going to talk about what you're not doing, or we hope that you will do, that impacts our lives and our way of communicating and keeping the community informed. So I hope to see you there. Again, that's going to be on Monday, January the 19th at the True Reformer Building, 1200 U Street Northwest from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. and registration is still open. Now let me share who our guests are today for our first segment, which is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase. David Berry, Executive Director of the Business Banking Area at JP Morgan Chase, is going to talk to us about what every small business owner needs to know to elevate their business. I'm going to tell you, as you know, Washington Informer has been in business for 60 years. I am still learning. Key things to help to make a business successful. And it's tough, especially during these tough economic times. So David Berry will be here to share hopefully some tips and ideas and guidance on what we need to do in order to get through this moment in time. And next, for Mental Health Awareness Month, we have Leon Burns, who's president of Open Technology Group. And Leon is a passionate mental health advocate who shares how he's leveraging technology for equity and innovation while prioritizing the well-being of his team. That doesn't even also always sound like it goes together, technology and individuals' well-being. But Leon's got some advice for us, and we certainly do look forward to talking to him. And then finally, our final segment, our reporter Jada Ingleton will talk to Lola Bakari, hope I have that right, an inclusive marketing strategist at CMO and CMO advisor. Lola is the founder of BeCo, and while she's going to share her expertise on empowering brands and marketing leaders through strategic guidance and innovative approaches. A lot of words there, but we're going to have a conversation with Lola on how we can better promote, because this is Small Business Month. And so we want to be able to, for you to be able to get some tools and some advice on what we can do to become better business owners and serving our customers better in the DMV. So before we start today's discussion, I want to remind you to pick up a copy of this week's issue of the Washington Informer. Here it is. And, I always love to show this because I just like to let folks know we're still printing. You never know, but we are still printing. And we have some great stories. Howard University's graduation and UDC's graduation were held last week. We were there to cover that. And we did a story on looking back, a Mother's Day for the justice involved for I guess what happened with her son or families in the DMV. A lot of mothers celebrated Mother's Day or observed Mother's Day, but they did it without a loved one. And so Sam's story is about that. With Maya Trujillo, who was they co-wrote that story, and of course I have one in there this week too, so you can check that out. And then of course the Ward 8, one of the Ward 8 candidates forum. We have an election coming up in July, so 3 of the candidates that are running for the Ward 8 seat participated in the candidates forum at Sycamore and Oak earlier this week, and Sam P.K. Collins was there to cover that as well. So we know that you need to be informed because hopefully everybody in Ward 8 will be going out to vote in this special election, and we definitely want you to be informed. And while you're watching today's show, let me ask you, please don't keep it to yourself. Help spread the word by sharing this broadcast on your social media channels and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We certainly do want you to become a part of the Washington Informer family. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Washington Informer TV, where you can catch up on any Let's Talk episode you might have missed. Our goal, we have a goal, and that is to get up to 3,000 hours of watch time of Let's Talk videos on YouTube. 3,000 hours. You know what? We're only 772 hours away from reaching our goal, thanks to those who have been watching. But help us by sharing this program with your friends and relations, and even if you have some enemies out there, show an act of kindness and send it to them as well. But we certainly do hope that you will share this program and that you'll enjoy what we try to bring to you each and every week. Before we bring on our first guest, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The District of Columbia has filed a lawsuit against Kenneth Brewer Sr., the former executive director of the H Street Community Development Corporation, alleging he misappropriated more than $1 million in nonprofit funds through unauthorized bonus payments and self-dealing. The complaint filed in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia outlines a years-long scheme in which Brewer, who led the nonprofit, as well as his for-profit subsidiary H Street Investment Corporation, allegedly bypassed board oversight and diverted money meant to support affordable housing and economic development in the H Street corridor. To fund these bonuses, the complaint asserts that Brewer directed the sale of the HSCDC-owned properties and transferred the proceeds of the HSIC to his personal accounts without notifying the HSDC board or obtaining court approvals, as required under DC law for charitable assets transfers. The complaint quotes, "It would be unjust for Brewer to retain these funds." The Danish toy maker Lego will build a 2 million square foot warehouse and distribution center south of Richmond, Virginia, to complement the manufacturing facility it is currently building in the state. The Lego Group will invest $366 million to build a warehouse in Prince George's County as well at the former Rolls-Royce facility in the Cross Point Logistics Center. It will open these centers in 2027 and will create about 300 jobs, according to the company. The company also said it will nearly create 1,800 jobs when these places are fully operational. The bill was first announced in 2022 and will mark Lego's first manufacturing facility in the U.S. Lego CEO Karsten Rasmussen commented saying, quote, "The regional distribution center will bring greater flexibility to our network, ensuring we are well positioned to support long-term growth in the Americas." The Maryland-based private equity firm Manoa has announced the launch of the Manoa SMB Accelerator, a new program aimed at supporting mature family-owned businesses within 100 miles of D.C. The accelerator, which begins September 18th, will culminate in a $10 million to $20 million investment offer to one winning company. Unlike typical accelerators focused on startups, Manoa's program targets more established family-owned companies, generating at least $20 million in annual revenue and $3 million in cash flow. Participation in the 90-day accelerator program is free, and only 3 companies will be selected. Andrew Sachs, Manoa's founding partner, said the accelerator addresses a critical need in the current business environment, saying that smaller companies are, quote, truly the backbone of our country. Applications for the Manoa SMB Accelerator are now open and will close August 8th, and the program will conclude on December 9th.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Curtis, for that news, that update of news that's happening that you can use, hopefully. And as I said, this next segment of Let's Talk is brought to you by JP Morgan Chase. David, that was your intro. It's my honor to bring on David Berry, Executive Director of Business Banking Area at JP Morgan Chase. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Thanks, Denise. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, hey, this is, I need to get on your couch. A lot of business owners need to be on your couch right now and spilling their hearts out to say, give us some answers. This is some tough times, David, for businesses. Tell us about your journey with JP Morgan Chase and how you ended up in this area.
Absolutely, Denise. I always say, I am who I'm from, and I know that's a bit funny, but I come from a family of dynamic entrepreneurs. My parents are 35-year business partners, and just seeing them navigate a lot of uncertainties and also challenges with banking. I joined JP Morgan Chase 12 years ago with one goal, and that goal being able to positively impact the communities that we serve. I started off as an intern. I was at Morehouse College at the time, and I stayed here in this firm and group. I'm now responsible for half the state of Maryland for our small business banking team, and we work with companies up to about 20 million in annual revenue. And last year, I was responsible for doubling our presence in the communities that we support across Greater Maryland. So it's a unique honor. It's a privilege to do what I get to do every day, but we get to sit side by side with business owners and help them navigate whatever today brings our way, right? And we're super excited for the opportunity to discuss more.
Yeah, whatever brings our way is coming so fast. I think businesses that were sitting pretty well 6 months, a year ago are now trying to figure out, where did this train come from that just hit them? But, what are you hearing from small business owners that you work with?
Denise, we're hearing a lot. And I think, to preface that, I think the focus on just uncertainty, we know is not good, right? We all hope to be in a space of stability and always to have clarity, but we know that that's not always the reality that we're in with whether it's the economy, the industry, the competitive landscapes that we support. But what we are seeing is that a lot of our business clients are looking to use this opportunity as ways to focus on innovation rather than to retreat. And, some of the conversations, which I think is parallel, is, just thinking about where we were 3-4 years ago coming off of the pandemic, right? It seemed like it was so far away. But in that moment, a lot of our business owners experienced change, and they found more innovative ways to shift, and it changed their operations. And it took a moment, but we were able to kind of come out of it, right? And so we're seeing, that this moment is a moment of uncertainty, and it is self-inflicted, whether you're for it or you're against it. But I'm an optimist. And the way that I look at it is that we're using this opportunity as a moment to pivot, right? And we're seeing that business owners are using the same strategies that they use, a lot of them coming out of the pandemic, which is, how do I be adaptive to change, right? How do I stay nimble? How do I take what's thrown my way and shift it back to make sure that my company, my employees, and my generational legacy is able to navigate this appropriately.
And so how does that happen? I know you're saying to innovation, but innovation a lot of times takes money. It takes revenue. And so how does that happen with small businesses and large businesses now who are sort of retreating, they're having layoffs, a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. So how do you advise people to innovate?
So I would take it from a few directions, Denise. I would always say, one, the advisors and the people around you are most important, right? And being able to have those around you that you can talk to, whether it's your bank partners, whether it's your attorneys, your CPA, et cetera. But also thinking about the long-term goal and strategies around the company. Being able to navigate today's landscape, but what does 2026, 2027, 2028 look like? And don't forget about that, right? As you continue to look at the plan of how you navigate today. There's a lot of capital resources that exist across the ecosystem. There's 5,000 banks that are in our economy, and there are a lot of programs that also exist. And I would love to talk through a few through our discussion today, but there are program and resources that are out there to exist to help business owners as they're trying to navigate the uncertainty that are specifically impactful to them and their company.
So let's talk about them. Since you want to, I certainly do want to hear them. I'm sure our listeners do too. What are some of those opportunities that businesses can take advantage of?
Yeah, so what I always think about, Denise, is just the value of one, coaching, whether that's executive coaching, whether that's more consultative support. There are a lot of programs that exist in our society today that are, whether they're cohort based or individualized, focused for coaching and helping entrepreneurs just navigate changes. I know we focused on that as a firm. In 2020, we launched our Coaching for Impact team, which is an amazing platform and program for entrepreneurs to leverage our what we call small business consultants. These are very senior folks in the banking industry that are, they help companies navigate recession in 2008, some of them the pandemics, right? And so being able to leverage that one-on-one coaching to really pull back the layers on the business and use that as opportunity to figure out, where do I go and how do I get there? We're seeing a lot of businesses value that. And the program is not for Chase customers. It's, we've opened it up completely to Chase and non-Chase customers. It is completely complimentary. And so we're seeing a lot of business owners leverage that. And also, if you think about it, with the recent uncertainties, a lot of companies right now are being very cautious, as you mentioned, Denise, and reevaluating strategies and plans. And so it is a great time to leverage, those that are seeing it from other companies, those are having direct experience, to leverage those advisors as you're pivoting and trying to figure out how to become more nimble in this environment.
Well, when we talk about pivoting, though, they were one of the, and I don't know if you're equipped to answer this, and I don't think Chase was one of those companies, but and I say this because we're coming up on the 5th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And as a result of that, a lot of major companies opened the doors of opportunity that were not open before because they were interested in equity. I don't do the other letters, but they were interested in equity. How do we even the playing field, particularly for small minority, I hate that word, but minority-owned businesses? And there were much greater opportunities. Recently, because of this those other letters, a lot of businesses, a lot of corporations have closed doors, which means that their government contractors or private contractors, small businesses that were benefited, who are no longer benefiting. It's not that they're doing anything differently, it's just who they are and not what they do. So how do you address that?
Yeah, I completely understand, Denise. These are very, very real conversations we're having day in, day out with our clients, and how to pivot in those moments. For clients that were in the government contracting space, we're seeing a lot of them pivot more into state and local. We're seeing a lot of them become a little bit more diverse in having commercial contracts versus just being 100% concentrated within the agency. But again, that really pulls back to the layer of that strategic planning and being able to really identify, how do I take my value as an organization? How do I take my service or my product and make sure that my customer base, if it's not going to be this one, it's going to be another one, to make sure that I continue to grow my business. And then secondly, when you think about, where we were then and where we were now, we actually launched our program, our Coach for Impact program, in 2020 on the hems of that challenge. And it still exists to this day, right? So we've not shifted our focus around helping entrepreneurs make smarter financial decisions, right? Being able to leverage the resources, the tools that we have. And a lot of what we do as well is we're connected with our partners. We're working with local small business development centers. We're working with mayor's offices and local and state organizations to identify, whether we can support a client directly or not, that there are resources that are out there that they can leverage to continue to grow. So I always tell our clients at this point in time, it is an opportunity to just revisit, those resources, reconnect with, those local development centers, reconnect with your mayor's offices for small business, or pull back a little bit more on those resources because they're there. Think about it. I have a nephew going off to college, and we were talking about just the scholarships, right? I think at one point scholarships was just everywhere. Now he's doing a little bit more work to identify what's the right scholarship for me. And so I think a lot of those resources are still there, Denise. I just think it requires a little bit more work to identify who's there, where can I go, how can I be valuable to take advantage of it.
Well, you said it quickly, but you dropped a lot of gems just in that brief conversation about where business owners can go to learn more about resources and what's available. Do you have any specific, you just sort of talked in general in general speak about places to go, which I hope people caught. But can you be more specific?
Absolutely, and I do talk fast, so I completely understand. There, Chase.com/business is a really great incubator for a lot of resources, a lot of tools. We've also built out our knowledge center on Chase.com, which provides support around navigating cash flow, supporting clients with cybersecurity and being more supportive to their employee staff around being able to identify threats. So there's many resources and articles and interviews that our clients can leverage, and non-clients, right? Just business owners as they're trying to figure out, where do I go? How do I change? How do I navigate this moment? Hopefully that's a great resource for them to start.
And some folks, just really that I don't know if Chase would offer that, but whether you're a Chase customer or not, but I mean, you've shown us the website and places where people can go, but is there like a number where somebody says, look, I'm trying to figure out, do I qualify for a loan? Some of the other things that you just mentioned, is there a phone number that's available to people?
There is a phone number. It's multiple. And what I would say about that is it starts with our branches, right?
Okay. All right.
We when I came to this market in 2019, we had about 7 or 8 branches. We're at over 130 branches that are local to DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and we're now in 48 states, right? So it starts with really building that one-on-one relationship with your local branch partners. They're going to be the ones to help you bring in the right people, being able to help you leverage all the tools and resources. So that's where it starts, and it builds that connectivity. I'll always talk about the value of the relationship with your banker, whether it's our bank or any other bank. But you don't want to have it just when you need it, right? When you need something from the bank, you want to have it when things are well. You want to have it when things are, when you're trying to figure out what to do next. So that's a great place to start, Denise, is the local branch. And they'll be able to plug in all the resources to help any entrepreneur be able to leverage what we're doing at Chase.
Well, that's that little bit of advice that never goes away. Have a relationship with your banker. And a lot of times you're right. People just don't take the time to do that. They go in, they don't even go into banks much anymore, David. So is that what you would also prescribe, to just go in and sit down and talk with a bank manager or a bank staff person? And, how do they initiate that relationship?
Absolutely. So what I would say is step one, Denise, is go to chase.com and locate the closest branch to you, right? You want to identify that branch that you're going to be able to go into more regularly and know the folks there. 2, schedule an appointment online just to make sure your time is of value. So we want to make sure we have somebody there to take good care of you. And then go in, have that open discussion, talk about your growth plans, talk about where you are today, talk about your challenges, and allow that small business specialist to really be able to navigate and create that team of advisors that you're going to need to be able to continue to grow. You can also go to chase.com with our /business for our coaching for impact team. That is a direct link to be able to go there and to sign up for coaching within our organization, again, for Chase customers and non-Chase customers. But the value of that relationship, we are still in a relationship business, right? I know we have a lot of technology, but we are all still in a relationship business. And so that relationship is really important. Your banker should be advocating for you. Your banker should be looking around the corner for your business. And sometimes if you're not seeing that, maybe you identify a new banker, and that's okay, right? But being able to have that relationship is very important, not only today, but as any entrepreneur continues to grow.
Well, I could go on and on because I'm a business owner, small business owner, and have a lot of questions. And you all are no stranger to Let's Talk. You've been available to answer questions that people have. And I'm just going to tell folks on the listening audience, David Berry is with us today. He's the Executive Director of Business Banking for JP Morgan Chase. And we've had other representatives from JP Morgan Chase to come and share great information. And so, I'm going to solicit questions from folks out there in the audience. We can't answer them now, but I'm going to hold on to them, or I'll send them to you, David. Maybe you can communicate with them, one-on-one. But for our next episode with Chase, we certainly would love to be able to address some of our community's questions. But I want to thank you so very much for being with us today. Anything I didn't ask that you want to add before you go?
I think you've asked amazing questions, Denise. So thank you absolutely for having me. As I close, I'll just say, continuing to focus on that resiliency plan, that adaptive plan for the business that should always exist, whether things are going great or not. Right. Control the controllables, but also, as we look around the corner, I'm always going to put a plug around fraud preventative, because we are seeing fraud continue to grow, and it's most impactful to small business. So continue to make sure that there's plans in place to address fraud preventativeness, and also internally with your team to be able to make sure that phishing and cyber threats are not impacting the small business. And then the last thing I'll add is, I know a lot of our clients are talking about talent, right? Hiring, keeping people is not easy. So having a strategic plan in place in efforts to address the shortages and all the challenges of hiring. And there's a lot of resources that we provide to help entrepreneurs leverage that to be successful. So I'll close with that, Denise, but it has been a complete honor. Thank you so much for having me.
No, my pleasure. And thanks for hitting on some touch points that we didn't talk about, but, definitely need further exploration. So have a good one, David. Enjoy the weekend, and maybe we'll see you back here soon. And thank you, JP Morgan Chase, for sponsoring this segment.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. All right, we're back, and it's my pleasure now to bring Leon Burns, president of Open Technology Group, to the show. Leon, are you there?
Hey, I am here. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's afternoon now, Leon. I don't know where you are. It's afternoon here. So
it is. Hey, look, we're all still adjusting to the hour change, even though we're about a month in, right? 2 months in.
Yeah, exactly. But at any rate, hey, I was excited when I looked at your bio and saw that you were a graduate of, I think, of Hampton University.
Hampton University, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And we joked a little bit earlier that, you went to HU, I went to HI, Hampton Institute, before transferring to Howard. So I have a little HI and HU, right?
I love it here. Yeah. My mom's a Tyson, so hey, it's in the family. So I'm around amazing women.
Wonderful. So tell us what Open Technology Group is and how you kind of your journey into this field of technology.
Sure, absolutely. So Open Technology Group's been around for about 34 years now. My dad started the company in 1990 when I was born. We do government contracting, IT primarily. We do a little bit of asset management. We do infrastructure. We do data migration, anything that's really pertaining to the infrastructure of the government. We've been relatively successful over the 34-year span to have helped a number of government entities within the area, and we're still here today. My dad passed, unfortunately, in 2011 due to lung cancer. Totally outlier, never smoked a day in his life, and so it just kind of happened, and we had a predecessor take over for about 10 years, and I was fortunate enough to come on board in 2022 and take over the company. So it's been great. In taking over, I've established pretty much a platform for DEI within the company to advance people that look like us in tech, and it's been great.
Wow, you said again, you and David, who was on earlier, you say a lot, and there's a lot in there that I get excited about. One is the legacy business that you came back and took over the company, and again, why did you feel it was important, to keep your father's legacy alive?
Well, I think, with not to take the cliche from Spider-Man, but with great power does truly come great responsibility. And I think that sometimes you're called to the forefront to do things that will benefit other people. My, MO has always been to climb the corporate structure in whatever capacity to open up doors for other people. I saw this as an opportunity to do that, right? So I'm over about 40 people right now. And what I've been able to do is essentially set up goals and milestones for them to advance their careers even outside of Open Technology Group. When I first started my career, I noticed that there were two different types of people. There were people who would either be in a position to help you and they would not, or people who would, say that they would and, ultimately wouldn't, right? I didn't want to be that person. Today, being fortunate enough to be in the CEO role, I'm creating an environment that allows people to strive for different things, advance within tech, and understand that it's more about just your day-to-day paycheck. It's about setting a precedent and example and getting other people that look like us into tech and advancing.
So how does that, is that what motivated you to create, this YouTube series that you're doing now called Black Mental Health Matters? I mean, how are you sort of bridging, the technology work that you do with mental health?
Actually, two totally separate entities that happen to merge over the course of time. I'm a huge proponent of therapy and I'm a huge proponent of mental health. But what I noticed is in the corporate America scale, at least, that productivity is valued far more than mental health, right? CEOs often and C-suite in general often want to see how much they can squeeze out of their team with no regrets as to whether the personal time is or just mental health state as well. With me being such a proponent of mental health, I noticed that the team worked relatively well under PTO, team engagement, just understanding that we're one team and understanding that they're being taken care of and thought of. So what I've kind of done with my stage is utilize, therapy, PTO, and team goal-oriented activities to increase the productivity in my team and preach that to them, outside of the company.
I mean, give me an example, Leon, of something, because we talked a little bit earlier with our prior guests about the times that we're in right now. These are very challenging times, and
yes,
decisions are being made that, and everybody's feeling very insecure.
Yes.
In position. So, I mean, what would be one thing that you would have done or would recommend a business owner could do to deal with sort of the anxiety that many employees are feeling right now?
I think it's always important to, even regardless of the level that you're at within the corporate scale. I think it's important to take a step back and empathize with your team, right? Like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty, and with that comes anxiety and a lot of pressure. I think it's important to just kind of align yourself with the boots on the ground, understand what they're going through on a day-to-day basis, and encourage them to move forward on one accord. That can be done a number of different ways. That could be done by encouraging PTO. Those mental health days are essential. We always, engrave a flex day, what like we call it, a floating holiday, into our schedule for people to do that. Tell people to spend time with their families. Use team-oriented activities, even outside of the office space, to just kind of like collaborate and just figure out exactly where you are. I think it's so important to have that intimate time, whether in office or out, just to kind of get a feel for where people really are.
You talked earlier also about DEI, which is sort of like the word that the initials nobody wants to use anymore because of the
word
time.
now. I hate that.
It is. And that's why I like the word accessibility,
Absolutely.
because that sort of, brings everything in without having to use those other letters.
Yes.
But how is that impacting, with what the national landscape is? How's that affecting your business, and how are you bringing that into Open Technology Group?
It's hard to say because, like we said, the word has been ostracized, due to this administration at such an audacious extent, right? I think that, when I kind of hit the ground running with the DEI concept in tech, was looked at as, an inclusive gesture to, kind of lower that gap, right? That wealth gap, and, particularly in tech. But now it seems to taking a turn to more of like a handout, which I hate. So, the way to kind of get around that is just to continue to prove, that we're actually here not due to a handout, but because of the qualifications that we have, and encourage people who are currently in the position of tech to exceed beyond their wildest dreams, to open up the door behind them, because that's all we have at this point. It's so unfortunate. I hope that things begin to change, but we're really going to have to put our money where our mouths are, and just utilize the skills that we have to advance accordingly. That's all we have right now.
Sometimes I find particularly with Black-owned businesses, we exercise, those businesses tend to exercise DEI more than others, because even if it's Black-owned, a lot of times you'll find a diverse workforce within that Black-owned company.
Yes.
And so is that part of what you are doing as well, with your company and your employees?
So I can't say that we actually have like a quote unquote Black force, if you will, because my company is over 90% diversity in itself, whether that be women or minorities in itself. So I can't say that we've set aside quote unquote a little space for that, because we've never had to do that. Working in the government for a number of years, particularly in tech, I've noticed that tech is taught so differently, internationally, right? And so for a lot of the government problems that we've come across, we've only been able to solve them because of the ways that they were taught overseas, or in different parts of America. So I just think it's essential to have that diversity within your tech team, because that's the only way you're going to be able to solve a multitude of problems.
Right. That's another word you used that I don't want that folks don't like. This is how we got into this boat when you're talking about setting aside, a certain group. But I know technology seems to be a very diverse field within itself. Absolutely. And even Black-owned companies I have observed are pretty diverse because they're tech companies, right? So that's interesting. So, I mean, what are, are there any recruitment, anything you're doing right now, either for, your podcast or your company itself, or what are you advising businesses to do right now? Business owners, especially.
So, my note to other business owners is to invest in your team at all costs. Figure out exactly where the gaps are in your team, and figure out ways to invest in them. For me, it's all about time. It's all about equity within that, whether that's, allowing them to go for different certifications, or, be recognized in different spaces within the company, whether that's employee of the quarter, employee of the year, what milestone has been reached, 5 years, 10 years. I think it's so important for people to be seen on your team, because, when they're seen, they truly do feel accounted for, and that totally increases your productivity and morale across the board.
I forgot to ask you, Leon, where are you based?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. In the city, in the district?
I am literally in the city. I can actually look out and see Howard behind me. We talked a little bit off there about where I was born. I was born in Washington Hospital, and I believe somebody said that they were, born in Howard Hospital, and it is actually right behind me.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. That's amazing. And as far as your company's concerned, I guess you doing okay. You haven't been impacted by any of these changes?
We have not been affected, just so thankful for that. Every day is a new day, but to this point, we have not been affected. As a matter of fact, incredibly blessed to say that we've actually expanded a little bit under the circumstances. But, like I said, every day is a new day, and we're just thankful for every additional day that we have with our contracts.
So before I let you go,
yes,
I want you to share with us what Leon Burns does for his mental health. What do you
Leon Burns do? Okay. Leon Burns does a couple things, right? He actually just got back from Mexico not too long ago. I went away for 23 days because I felt like it was necessary. Reached a pretty sizable rest period in my work schedule, and felt like it was a great idea to get away. So I went to Cancun just to kind of get away from the district, and get away from the mundane tasks, right? Being in an all-inclusive for a number of weeks allowed me to, just kind of set my own schedule, do a lot of, exercising, yoga, mental health. And, I kid you not, people often talk about how silence can be so loud, and it truly was that. I feel like I came back with a lot more clarity than I left with, and just really got back to what was important, seeing that, I hadn't been around my family as much as I really needed to be, right? Or I hadn't been exercising as much as I should have been. So I think that, kind of stepping away from the everyday, allows you to kind of reset and reprioritize what's truly important. And it certainly did that for me.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's good advice. Even if you can't get away, just get away from your environment. Go down to
A little
down to the
while.
river, or go someplace, go walk through the woods.
Anything, whatever your piece is, whether that's the beach, whether that's, the mountains for hiking or whatever, find your piece. And if you don't know what your piece is, I would highly encourage you to even meditate on what that looks like for you, because it doesn't look the same for everybody. So that's my tidbit of the day.
All right. Well, Leon Burns of Open Technology Group, I want to thank you so very much for being with us, for sharing those tips. I feel better already, just thinking about what I could think about.
I'm glad. What I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, and have a great day.
Absolutely. You do the same. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty. So now it's my pleasure to bring on our reporter, Jada Ingleton, who will be having an interview. Well, I'm going to let her introduce her guest. But Jada, welcome to Let's Talk, as always.
Thank you, Ms. Denise. Good to see you, and good afternoon, everyone. As Ms. Denise said, I work with the Washington Informer. Not an unfamiliar face to Let's Talk, but we do have a new guest joining us today. Lola Bakary will be here speaking on behalf of inclusive marketing, as well from an entrepreneurial perspective. Lola, how are you this afternoon?
I'm great. Hi, Jada. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So please, why don't you introduce yourself to our guests, and we can dive right into this conversation.
Sure. Awesome. Well, my name is Lola Bakary. I am an inclusive marketing strategist, CMO advisor to, and that's a code for chief marketing officers, for those who might not be aware, and author of the book Responsible Marketing, which you see right behind me. Thank you so much for that. Advises on how to create an authentic and inclusive marketing strategy, something that now more than ever is needed advice for everybody running a business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we're going to dive into the book and also just your expertise. What drew you specifically to not only learn, but encourage other people to utilize responsible marketing?
That's such a great question, Jada. It was really something that organically grew from my experiences working in major Fortune 500 corporations. So I started my career decades ago now, just turned 40, at PepsiCo on the Gatorade brand, which is a really iconic place to learn the basics of marketing. Went on to work with places like Dell, got my MBA at NYU Stern, spent some time at Diageo on the Smirnoff Ice brand. And through this collection of just really amazing experiences at world-class brands, I also started to observe what worked and what didn't when it came to connecting with consumers on an emotional level. As an English major as well, someone who's always sort of studied any environment that I'm in, I started to really pay close attention to what other brands were doing and looking at some of the pitfalls that happen when you're not really doing authentic attempts at inclusive and responsible marketing. People can really tell the difference between something that is performative and something that is really impactful. So I wanted to be a voice that can help marketers with a roadmap of advice, how-tos, how not tos, so that we can see more success in this field. And ultimately that leads to more business success.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned, one thing that you came to realize was, what works and what doesn't work in terms of, marketing outreach. So can you share what some of those do's and don'ts are for businesses that are listening?
It's super key. And literally each of the things I'm going to mention is a chapter of the book. But in a nutshell, you want to do things that don't just have intent, but have impact. And I break that down into 4 key ways that marketing is actually responsible, in that it's inclusive and authentic. And so the first is you can solve a real problem. So think about a brand that is doing something that isn't just talking the talk, but is actually addressing an issue. Then you can create real opportunity. So when you think about programs like what Gap has done, what Banana Republic has done with Harlem Fashion Row, that's actually giving Black entrepreneurs an opportunity to have their clothing featured on a national scale. That's creating real opportunity. That's not just saying we support Black designers. That's actually giving them an opportunity, right? So that's the second one. The third is that you can tell real stories. And this is key. We don't always want to be seen, let's just talk about the Black community in general, as people who are great at dancing and playing basketball. Tell some of our real stories really get personal, be authentic, and don't just focus on the tropes that are normally the go-tos. And then fourth, then this is key, especially now, is that you can advocate for real policies. So you look at a brand like Ben and Jerry's, they're actually standing up for what they believe in and saying, we don't believe in police violence. We want to change these laws. We want to actually make a difference. You see a brand like Elf Beauty standing up and saying, we want to change how boardrooms are sort of focus on creating more representation, right? We want to make a more diverse boardroom in every corporation, and they're actually doing the work to make that happen from their own board to impacting other boards. So that's really a great example of actually changing policy. And so when you think about a marketing effort that is not going to be performative, if it does one or more of those four things, you're definitely on your way there.
Excellent. I think one of the things you've touched on both in your response and then also just in, the process of setting up this conversation, I learned that one thing that you stand by is that, being culturally fluent is not just a skill, but, it's a core marketing skill, not just a cultural trend. So can you speak a little bit to that? What do you mean by that? And how have you seen that need increase?
I love that question, Jada. And, what cultural fluency really starts with humility. Mm-hmm. It is understanding that when you are speaking to an audience or engaging, in a conversation that isn't native maybe to your lived experience, you're going to need to learn from them how to do it properly. And you're going to need to understand that that's sometimes going to come with feedback. So cultural fluency starts with listening and understanding that you as a marketer do not have all the answers. So when you think about something like this is one that was talked about a lot over the years, the Kendall Jenner PepsiCo ad that people really found to be more representative of cultural appropriation than PepsiCo probably meant it to be. Mm-hmm. Moving on from that was just about apologizing, taking the L, saying we hear you, and learning how to do things better going forward. And that's what they did. So it's not saying that you're always going to get it perfect, but it means that you're willing to sort of listen, learn, and adjust as you get that feedback. And then preemptively, you are talking to communities before you end up engaging with those communities. You're doing things in a way that's community-led as opposed to sort of community featuring. Mm-hmm. You're doing things that aren't just for the culture, but are of the culture.
Absolutely. And how have you sort of applied that same ideals and mentality within your own business? You are an entrepreneur, a founder of Vico.
Yes. So that's another good question. A lot of what I do is focus on thought leadership. And so one of the ways that I demonstrate humility, I post on LinkedIn. I'm a top voice there. Actually just crossed 40,000 followers today. So that's exciting. Thank you. But if you see the way that I engage, I try to model that spirit of I always have things to learn too. Mm-hmm. So for example, this is something that happened last year, I believe it was. I made a post and I used the term kowtow to describe how people at some companies are just bowing down to the whims of the administration or sort of the rising themes of what you might call right-wing politics, wanting to move us away from inclusion. And then somebody of Japanese origin came in my comments and said, I understand what you're trying to say, but you understand the term kowtow is actually really offensive because it was used to describe Japanese people in a disparaging way. And so to me, that was a great learning experience. I said, wow, thank you so much for educating me. There was no need to get upset or be defensive. It was an easy way to show that what we're doing when we're marketing responsibly is we're getting messages out, but we are also taking messages in with a spirit of humility and a willingness to learn. And that's what I think more marketers really need to be doing in order to make it through, these unprecedented times in ways that you're going to come out with your business intact. Not to go on, but I'll give an example of a brand that I have a lot of love for, but I think is struggling with this right now, and that's Target. So as everyone knows, they came out sort of divesting from their years-long and sort of robust and really groundbreaking innovations in the area of diversity, equity, inclusion, even when it comes to their assortment, their mix of vendors. I have close friends who were put on the shelf at Target through their diverse vendor programming. It's something that has made them a lot of money over the years. And then to come out and say that they're no longer focused on those efforts is just something that led to a dramatic decrease in actual measurable foot traffic at those stores.
Absolutely.
So the risk of not engaging in these themes it's not just a moral one, it's a financial one too. And so we should all be paying attention to that. I do it in my business, and I try to advise others to do it in theirs, because it's really about everything, the bottom line, and how we want history to see us.
I love that. I mean, that's honestly is what it comes down to, because, essentially your whole reputation, in a sense, is your brand and how you're promoted and perceived. So I do, with that in mind, I mean, one thing that, as you've noted to me, is not necessarily intertwined with inclusive marketing, but we are seeing this trend increase, is snark marketing.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what exactly that looks like, and what is that fine line between edgy commentary and saying something that might be offensive?
And it's a really great question. And right now, I think a lot of it has to do with the rise in social media. So you see a lot of this taking place on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it today, where a brand will kind of jump in a conversation that's happening in order to, and this is how I would define what snark marketing is, in order to relate to their consumers in a way that feels more like a friend than a corporation. They'll sort of say something edgy to get into that conversation. A notable one of recent just sort of occurrences is where we saw Wendy's jump into the conversation about Katy Perry's Blue Origin trip, and they said something along the lines of, paraphrasing, we wish she would have stayed up there, or something like that. People had a lot of laughs about it. I'm on the fence as to whether that was responsible as far as championing, the idea of women having opportunities like getting into space, whether or not you loved the commentary she had about it or thought she was maybe a little bit too flamboyant with it. Did Wendy's really need to be in that conversation? Debatable. Another brand that does a lot of what I would call snark marketing is Duolingo. That it's really key to their approach to branding. They have their avatar that, does different things that you wouldn't really expect from a major brand like that, but it keeps people engaged. So I think the fine line is really, if you have a reason to be part of the conversation and you understand that the reward might be bigger than the risk, it's okay for brands to experiment in that space. But if you're really just trying to jump on every single bandwagon, I think that's where a lot of brands kind of cross the line.
Absolutely understood. And, my last question, I mean, the question of the hour is, one thing everyone has to start looking at is from a future lens. What are we going to start seeing happening with different businesses in the future? And just you specifically in your expertise, what sort of, do you think, well, number one, that we will see more inclusive marketing tactics in this political climate? And how do you want to see the future of inclusive marketing or responsible marketing be shaped?
Well, I'm an optimist, so I'm going to say that what I want to see is what I'm actually predicting and what we're starting to see many more examples of now. And that is something I call brand bravery. It actually encompasses more than just marketing, but think of it as how a brand shows up, how it lives its values. And we're going to see more people, and when I say people, I mean brands in this case, more companies, more representatives of companies have a voice that dissents from what the sort of authoritarian bend we're seeing come from Washington might assert right now. Harvard University is a great example. Flat out disagreed with the demands that were coming from Washington. And that only serves to take Harvard's brand equity up a notch. They had more applicants this year than ever before. So I'd sum that up by saying, when other people are zigging, the smart people zag. And we're going to see more brands take the benefit of zagging. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. And in fact, you get a lot more benefit when you don't. So, if you want to play it safe, that's really not playing it smart.
I love that. I love that, Lola. Thank you so much. Do you have any takeaway from this conversation, that not only this conversation, but when readers read your book, of course, we want to promote your book as well. What do you want people to take away from it?
Yeah, I want everybody from those in corporate marketing seats. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people who do this every day, to even those who are just starting a side hustle or running their own small business, to understand that this book is for you. It takes you through really practical examples. That's the feedback I always get, of how to apply the principles of responsible marketing to grow your business in a way that gives you more impact and output financially than you would otherwise have. So it's really about doing really well while doing things that are good. And what better way to sleep at night knowing that our bank accounts are full and our hearts are full as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lola. It's been a pleasure to have you. You've provided some very excellent pointers. I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but these are things that I would definitely be thinking about if I was getting into, brand creating or business marketing. So
you are a creator. Here you are creating. So I think it applies to you too.
Oh, fine point. Thank you so much.
You go. Well, all right. Thanks, Jada. Appreciate you.
It was nice meeting you, Lola. And I will take it back to Ms. Denise. We've had a lot of pivotal, transformative conversations and perspectives today. So I'm happy to have been able to be a part of it and watched alongside the rest of you. But Ms. Denise, if you're ready to close us out.
Oops. Yes, Jada, I am. And thank you so very much. Boy, I got a lot out of that. And I'm so glad that you introduced us to Lola Bokhari. And, and then we had an opportunity also to talk to David Barry of JP Morgan Chase and Leon Burns with his technology company. It's been a great, great show as we acknowledge Small Business Month. I would have loved to have asked Lola, because there's a language, right? There's a language of how companies market to us, but how do small businesses market to companies now with the new language? So we might have to get her back on. I'm going to pick up a copy of that book because it sounds like it's got some great tidbits of information. So I'm happy she took some time to join us. And I'm even happier that our viewers were here today. We want to thank you so very much for watching Let's Talk, where the conversation never stops. Stay tuned for our week in photos, and we'll see you back here next week. Have a wonderful weekend.